Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today and joining us. It's been a long day. The last 24 hours I've been traveling back from Brazil, and one sequence after another. I only got home about an hour ago, so we'll go a little bit more off the heart today rather than the head. But we do have a great show planned for you today. We're going to talk a lot about what CIOs can do when they're not being a CIO, and what transition might look like from one role to the next. But before we do that, I do want to ask everyone if we can have a quick conversation and take a moment to acknowledge Tech Day in Pink, which is coming up on October 9th. It's a great reminder that we can impact leaders as from a technology perspective and drive awareness and change. And to talk a little about this, I'd like to invite one of our guests today, a little early, Michael Smith. Michael's no stranger to the show. We've done this is our third time talking about Tech Day at Pink here. And as you know, Michael is a transformational leader, passionate about building high-performing teams. He spent over 2 decades at Nike, most recently Estee Lauder, and we'll hear a little bit more about what Michael's doing now since Estee Lauder. But his real value is not only helping CEOs redefine their vision and drive growth. Michael's passionate about giving back and started Tech Day in Pink. And Mike, can you just give us a little background as to the evolution, where it came from, and how you thought about it?
Yeah, Robert, thank you. First of all, thank you for giving me this moment to talk about Tech Day at Pink, and just honored to be on this panel that we have today. Tech Day at Pink really started in 2017 when I first joined the Estee Lauder companies, and I had just recently lost somebody very close to me to a battle of breast cancer. And sure enough, the first executive leadership team meeting I went to, there was talk about the Estee Lauder company's breast cancer campaign, and that really inspired me to ask what could I do. What began as kind of an internal effort to ask people to wear pink, and I was going to donate to Breast Cancer Research Foundation for every post they put out there with their picture in pink. That evening when I was scrolling through, kind of trying to see all the posts, I noticed there were a lot of posts from people I'd worked with at Nike and at Mylan, and some companies I was on the advisory boards with. And so it struck me that there was an opportunity here to really use my platform, to use my network, reach out to all the friends I had made, other CIOs through conferences and meetings, and ask them to engage their teams. The next year it was much bigger. And last year we had over 2 million people globally participate, about 100 companies. It's a really simple call to action that really makes a difference, which is you wear pink, you use the hashtag TechInPink 2025, and you post publicly. Myself and other people then donate for every post. We do cap it because it's gotten so big, cap those donations. But I also encourage people to put into their post, why is this mission important to them, or put into their post things that can be preventative to decrease risk. There's lots of materials out there that they can link to, and critical resources they can link to. So we're not just filling social media with pink to raise awareness and funds, but we're also educating, because 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year. In the U.S. alone, 365,000 people, women and men, will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer, and that's a staggering number, and it means that it impacts almost everyone, either directly or someone you love and care about, or is in your circle. And so it's a simple call to action for CIOs that are out there, and other leaders. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be in tech. This is a great team building opportunity too. This is a moment to pull your team together in some purpose, and it's something that people can rally behind. And I hear that. I've heard that actually 3 times this week already from different organizations. People saying that their teams are asking them, what are they going to do for Tech Day at Pink this year? So.
If I wasn't rushing for the airport, Michael, I actually did have the pink shirt and pink ribbon, and I couldn't find it when I got home. But we do a lot outside of our day jobs. We spend a lot of time networking, collaborating, and this is a great opportunity for awareness and celebrating each other. But on October 9th, there'll be an event. And if you want to talk about the event for a minute and maybe share who the band is. Last year at the Paramount, was it Paramount last year?
Yeah, this year, JetBlue. So I want to thank JetBlue for providing the venue this year in Brewster Properties. We'll be in Long Island City this year, and it is October 9th. It starts at 6:30. You can go to techdayofpink.org and navigate there to where you can purchase tickets. Now, when I say purchase tickets, you're actually donating directly to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and then they'll give us names at the door so we can let people in. But we have a great musician, Orlando Menendez. He's known as the Cuban Cowboy. If you watch The Voice, he turned all 4 chairs. I don't personally watch The Voice, but I'm told that's a good thing. And he's got some great music out, and we'll have a silent auction. We've had some great partners donate this year for the auction, and love to see as many people there as possible. It's always a great time to see good friends and make an impact.
I've been every year since we started doing this with you, and I post on Instagram and LinkedIn. But it is a great event. It's not, and it doesn't feel like the other events we're trying to celebrate or learn. It's really about learning about each other and connecting. And the stories that I've heard every year there stay with you, and it makes this a lot more important from my perspective. Especially, how when I lost my mom, right when we did the first show, you were there for us in that, and how we could support you, Michael. I'm always here, whatever you need.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, not just this year, but as you said, all the past years. It's been tremendous.
Well, I will see you on October 9th, hopefully before that, but I'll be there on October 9th.
Yeah.
So let's just get on with the show, and I'd like to bring on 2 other spectacular leaders. We'll start first with Karen Higgins Carter. Karen's a multi-industry chief information and digital officer who partners with CEOs and boards to drive innovation, digital transformation, and cybersecurity channel strategy. With roots in engineering, she has broad experiences, known for a pragmatic, collaborative approach and passion and mentoring for future STEM leaders. I know some of the organizations Karen's worked in the past. They're very, very impressive, but we'll dive into what she's doing now today. Karen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And the last person on the panel today, but not least, Janet Sherlock. Today, Janet's the founder and CEO of OrgWorks, where she also helps companies simplify organizational complexity, drive growth and efficiency. As a former Chief Digital and Technology Officer, Ralph Lauren, and CEO of Carter's, Janet brings deep expertise in digital transformation, data, AI strategy. She's serving on the boards of BJ Restaurant, Brew House, and bringing both executives and boardroom perspectives to everyday's conversation. Janet, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I think everyone's probably interested in what you all have going on now. That's why it's sort of short your intro. But Janet, if you don't mind starting and just letting everybody know what you have going on and what you're working on currently, I'd appreciate that.
Certainly. Thank you. So as you mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of org.works, which is a firm. I'm a solopreneur, so it's me. I'm the person who does the EA work, so my calendar is a mess, and I have so much more appreciation for EAs. But what I focus on is helping organizations structure senior leadership, whether it's in technology, how to structure AI. I've been doing this for about a year. I was inspired after my research when I worked on my doctorate during COVID. And I went in with a thesis that there was too much overlap, particularly in the technology space, but it also bridges into lots of other space with chief transformation officers, chief strategy officers, chief innovation officers, product officers, et cetera. And so I had a really unique study where I found that the lack of clarity in organizations is so much more disruptive than anyone could ever imagine. So I decided when I pivoted out of being a CIO that this is how I was going to spend my next chapter.
Thank you, Janet. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that today as well, and future conversation we'll have. But Karen, do you mind sharing your journey with us as well?
Yeah, so sure. I'm also a former recovering, chief information and digital officer like Janet. I serve on two boards. First is Intermex, which is a publicly listed board money transfer business that services customers, foreign-born customers in the U.S. with money transfer services to 60 countries. And also on the board of Otsuka Pharmaceuticals, a U.S. subsidiary of Otsuka Holding Companies in Japan, whose primary treatment areas are psychiatry, nephrology, and a growing focus on immunology. In addition to that, I am delighted to have been named to the board of T200.org, which is an organization Janet is very familiar with it. She was with me, 7 years ago at my first meeting. That has grown to about an organization of about 1,500 women who are really the next generation of leadership. So I'm really inspired by the organization and the opportunity to coach and to give back.
Wonderful, Karen. Thank you. And T100 has been T200 has been. I've been a fan of it all along. Ariana got me introduced to it first a while ago, and whenever I could lend a hand, I'm always happy to be in leadership.
We appreciate that. It's a labor of love, and on the weekends.
All the time. Well, Karen, thank you. Michael, so I know you have a few things going on that might be a little less traditional, but how about you taking us on a little bit on your journey?
Yeah, probably a lot less traditional, but I began preparing for my step away from from a C-level technology role a couple of years ago when I acquired a professional soccer or football team in Northern Ireland, the Carrick Rangers, and so I've really enjoyed my time with that, mainly because we tend to think of these things as just what we see on the football field on the pitch, right? But it's a complete business. We have our own apparel brand for fan wear. We have an omni-channel business. We have a food and beverage business. As we move to a full-time academy, we're in the education business, and of course, we do a lot of work with the government and the local community. And so it's really been a complete kind of rounding experience, being involved in everything from marketing to finance to everything but technology, basically. So which is kind of a nice change. And and I recently I've been investing in some independent television projects that cannot share a lot about, but I'm excited about the opportunity of what some of those things may look like. And then, of course, working with Tech Day of Pink and Tech Pact. Janet and I worked together on Tech Pact. In fact, Janet inspired Tech Pact, and it's really where we have a number of CIOs that come together to really focus on providing an opportunity for anyone that wants to succeed in the world of technology to make sure that they have that opportunity to succeed. So,
thank you, Michael. And with both Karen and Janet's strong ties to T200 and the Carrick Rangers recently starting their own women's soccer team, I think maybe a road trip for the T200 group is in line to get to at some point. So one thing I think everyone's probably going to be really curious about, and we're never going to say stepping away from the role of a CIO, because I love being a CIO and getting back. It'd be hard to leave that, but talking about moving into different roles and what you guys have done, can we talk about what CIOs might need to do to prepare for that next stage of their career? And if you could take us to some of the stuff you've done, or some advice you could give them, I think people like to take that away from here. One of the most important things I've heard from people so far. So, Michael, any thoughts from your perspective on what CIOs can do for that next step?
To prepare for the next step, the most important thing is understand what you want to do and understand where you're going to find joy, where you're going to find fulfillment. And then I do believe it is important to start making moves toward that before you leave the role, so that you're not going in cold. I have a number of friends that are continuing to work simply because they don't know what they want to do next, and there's really kind of no other opportunity. And I personally find that sad. And, it's spending some time really thinking about what brings you joy and how can you make that happen, and building those interests even while you're in the role. Part of it is about being a balanced leader, right? I I personally believe for these roles that we've held, you have to be you have to be 100% committed in many ways. You have to have that fire in the belly, not just a little fire like an inferno. You have to bring passion to be successful and to thrive in those jobs, but you also have to have the balance to take care of yourself and to build interests outside of work, because I think that makes you a better leader. And in thinking about those things in the context of, well, what am I going to do next? I think it's very important.
Michael, thank you. Shannon, how about you?
I think Michael said it so eloquently. I completely agree. I have seen people in the seat that stay there because they don't know what to do next, or because they have a dollar threshold that they're looking for. And I have to say, I do find that a little bit sad. But my advice is the same as what Michael said, which is the same advice that I give to early career. I will do free coaching for early career, usually women. And defining your North Star is so important. And I think that people forget about their North Star as they're going through their career, and then forget about that other chapter. So if you don't know what that is, then you need to do exactly what Michael said, which is inventory those things that really you have passion about. I love Michael's story that he took something that he had a passion for and completely pivoted. Most of us don't pivot that significantly, but my pivot's pretty significant as well. I do, strategic organization structure is my focus now. That's a material difference from technology. Now, of course, with the way things are, I'm able to leverage a lot of my technological skills, my digital skills, e-commerce, all of those things into it. So it's been an advantage. But defining your North Star, if you don't know what that is, try to figure that out. When you know what that is, then you can move very confidently into the next step. And then, like Michael said, you need to start building that foundation for your next step, whether you think it's, teaching, you want to get your contacts in academia. If it is consulting, you need to, do a lot of things to get prepared to make sure that your voice is going to matter when you transition. So I thought it was said so eloquently, but somehow I managed to pile on to it.
Well, thank you for piling on, and I think maybe we get a little more pile on from Karen. Karen, any thoughts, especially also sitting on a global board, an international board? Any thoughts you had to make that transition?
Yeah, no, and I think to pile on, it's a little bit anxiety inducing, like, Janet has found her purpose and Michael's found his, and I'm like, oh, I don't know that I have found that yet. And so I think a lot of people are in that position, and it continues to change, over time. I would say the things to be very practical, right? Coming from a technology leader role, you tend to come up in the organization in a more narrowly focused way. And there is very much an anti-tech leader bias, I would say, when you're talking about being a business generalist. Like if you grow up in finance, you're closer to investor relations. If you grow up in legal, say, you're closer to corporate governance. But growing up as a technologist, things that you can do now to prepare yourself both for your future and to be more effective in your current role is begin to think about yourself as a business generalist who has experience in technology, as opposed to just continuing to grow as an expert, because you're not going to land on a board because you are a technology expert. You're going to land there because you bring a broader business perspective that is relevant to the strategy of the company. So I'd say, opening the aperture from understanding and delivering for customer needs to understanding market expectations. Like that's something very pragmatic that you can learn, spend time with your investor relations teams, listen to the earnings calls, understand the thesis for the investors in your company, whether it's privately held, family owned. If you spend time understanding that, it will begin to position you more as the strategic generalist and make you better in your current role.
I think having that broad business sense is always really important to be successful in what we do currently. But
yeah, if I could add on to what Karen said, when I joined the public board that I'm on, of course, I think they were thrilled to have my cybersecurity expertise, my technology expertise. But I think the thing that shocked them the most was I am a marketing expert. I am a digital strategy expert, even though, my title was chief digital officer at Ralph Lauren, and I was responsible for the global e-commerce business. I have a reputation for being a technologist.
Mm-hmm.
Truth be told, I'm not really a technologist. I've never, barely written a line of code, never threw a wire, or anything like that. But I think that, on top of that, if you do know, positioning yourself in the marketplace, in your artifacts, and building your reputation to be, just like Karen said, much more broad than a technology leader is important.
thanks. I appreciate that perspective, and the technology leader is what gets you to this point in your career where you transition. I just want to take a minute, and anybody who's watching and listening, how humbled I am, and how honored we are. I mean, we're talking about decades of experience in brands here that are tops of the list. I mean, we'll show up on everybody today. We touched on Mike a little bit, but my next question is going to start with Dr. Sherlock, but we'll talk about ExxonMobil, BP, Guess, Calico, and most recently at Ralph Lauren. But the question that plagues me is how the identity you have. You moved from CIO to doing something else, right? But the identity of having that CIO title is sort of defining in some of the circles you run in, and it gives you information that you get to keep to yourself. How do you authentically, I know it's going to be a difficult question, but how do you find purpose and value when you're talking to someone about what you do going forward, and how do you brand yourself now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you go from the petroleum industry, ExxonMobil, which has a certain culture and a certain dynamic, and you work for Guess, and that has a very completely dynamic, and Ralph Lauren has a different persona and culture. So every time you make those moves, every time you shift in your roles or positions as you elevate throughout organizations, your own personal persona changes a bit. So you adapt to that. So I feel like I've adapted to my consultancy and I do have to admit, you see the little Dr. Janet Sherlock there. I feel a little cheesy, throwing the doctor in there. But, the reason that I do that is it is part of my persona. I have rich research that supports the practice that I have. So again, going into the thinking it through and planning it through, and the persona that I have, I believe I have a fair amount of credibility in the technology space, but not necessarily fully in the academic space or in consultancy or advisory. Although I did run the digital and omnichannel practice at Gartner years and years ago. But, I've had to work to build that, and I'm continuing to build that. I haven't been gone from Ralph Lauren. It hasn't even been a year. So it's a work in progress, Robert.
Karen, any thoughts? Well, actually, before I ask you your thoughts on how you define yourself, Karen, let's just take a quick look at some of your experience. And you look on most recently Gilbane, but CIO Webster Bank, we have Bridgewater, JP Morgan Chase, GE, big roles, big companies, big brands, but now we're a board member. So how do you make that transition in defining yourself?
Yeah, no, I think, to build upon what Janet said, you can adapt to different environments, and that does not mean that you're being inauthentic. Like if you are finding ways to relate to your partners in your business stakeholders, like for example, I'm a mechanical engineer by background. I grew up in banking and financial services. Then I moved to a construction company. So that elements of my undergrad education in mechanical engineering doesn't make me a construction professional by any means, but it gives me a way to relate to the majority of the organization that grew up in civil and structural engineering. So me drawing that out is not being inauthentic, but rather finding ways to connect and understand the stakeholders that you're working with. And I think you can do that in multiple contexts. I think the way that I think about the breadth of my experience is what I have been exposed to. And I think it really broadens, again, moving back to becoming a strategic generalist with experience in technology. If you think about risk management, JP Morgan Chase was the place to learn about enterprise risk management. GE was all about developing people. And so I think sometimes CIOs can discount those factors in their experience and try to promote themselves for board work as an expert. And I think some of the SEC proposals have kind of led people astray to focusing themselves as the expert and put me on a board so I can applaud your tech strategy, as opposed to reflecting and thinking more fully upon what they've been exposed to and how that brings value.
Thank you, Karen. Michael, going from CIO to owner of a soccer club and some other things, how do you make that switch to talk about your role?
Well, I think for one, I was never big on titles, so I didn't really miss the CIO thing going away. I first of all, I completely agree with everything I heard from Janet and Karen in terms of this idea that you adapt to kind of what you're doing. Your role is not who you are. Your role is something you do, and for me, it just was a change of roles. But the fact of the matter is, is even as a CIO or CDIO or CTO, you're playing different roles all the time anyway, right? You're not just the technologist. To Karen's point, you're not just the technologist at the table. You're participating in many different parts of the business. You have many different responsibilities, and so that idea of adapting to your role and understanding what your role is and what you're responsible for and what you have to do is what's important. But you still bring your authentic self to that. You still bring your own values and principles and style, quite frankly, to those things. So, and quite frankly, now when people ask me what do I do, I haven't figured out how to explain it or talk about it, so I just kind of ramble.
Well, the ramble is where we learn the most, right? So I'm okay with you rambling. So this is all good from a level setting perspective. So a little hard, Knox question here, I guess. So what opportunities and pitfalls in moving from operational leadership to portfolio style careers have you seen?
Who was that to, Robert?
That's a good question. I should have done that. Michael, why don't you start?
The question was the portfolio was
moving from an operational responsibility to now managing either something more like portfolio or a board or other things. What's the hardest? What's that?
I think one is I don't know that I found anything incredibly difficult, but different. The knowing where and when and how to focus and prioritize your time becomes even more. You think it's important in these C-level roles. It becomes even more important when you have this portfolio of things. And then the other thing I would say is it's very different in that things like Tech Day of Pink, Tech Pack, but even a football club, while we have professional players, professional staff, we also have a lot of volunteers, and just most of the clubs in that part of the world run on volunteers, and so that also is a very kind of different way of working and a different way of thinking than just having a team that reports to you. So.
Thank you, Michael. Karen, do you want to take a stab at this one also?
Yeah, sure. I would say biggest pivot point. I totally agree with Michael in terms of being judicious in how you spend your time. I think I used to give away my time just because I had it. And then I'd be exhausted at the end of the week and feel like I didn't really accomplish anything that I wanted to focus on. And so being very careful with how you divide up that pie. Your time is just as valuable, even if you're not in a C-level executing, all consuming type of role. I would also say the second thing for me was learning how to add value from the balcony. If you think about the management team and the executives on the dance floor day in, day out, trying to expand market share, win customers, solve problems, manage risks, they're bumping into each other. And in a board, you're on the balcony, so you see a little bit more. And the initial instinct is to get down on the dance floor with them, like, hey, I've done that before, I could be there and can help there. And you don't necessarily have a mental map for how to add value from the balcony. And so one thing I've had to train myself to do when I'm preparing for board meetings or in discussions, to think about what is my role in making this company successful 5 years from now? Like, what then are the questions I'm going to probe on, or the material that I'm going to focus on or ask for? And I found that to be a fundamental shift to get over that pivot point. I think it's really easy to say, noses in, fingers out. It's mentally a trick to operationalize that. I see Janet nodding to that. And it takes practice, and it takes perspective and valuing that, being on the balcony, part of how you operate.
Thank you, Karen. Karen, any thoughts on this topic too?
Yeah, I mean, Karen is spot on when it comes to board work. Your job is oversight and strategy and long-term vision, and it's management's job to execute. So you definitely have to resist that urge to jump in. But on the other side of it, if I go to some of the comments that Michael made about where to spend time and how to prioritize, it's so much harder now. So, anybody who's a current CIO, CTO, CDO, I guarantee they look at their calendar and it's full. It's meeting after meeting after meeting. You're back to back, you're triple booked, and you're thinking, wow, I'm working hard. Oh, you are not working hard. Because what happens is after those meetings, your team is then working hard. You are just going to another meeting. Yes, I'm not saying you don't have that much work to do, but the real work is being done by your team. In my situation, I now have clients I have to follow up with. I have to, and I've got to determine whether it's an engagement I want to take or not take, and how much. And I get ghosted all the time. I apologize to any vendors that I ghosted in my past because it happens so often to me now. People want free consulting, and my time is valuable, so I have to try to tease between those things. So there's a lot of pitfalls in managing your time, making sure that you keep cognizant of the fact that your time is valuable. It's a little different than getting, your salary and your bonus when you are now on your own, and your time has to be protected. So I think that's the, I love both of their answers, and I completely agree with everything that they said.
Listen, we just got a question up here. All right, this is cool, and I always love North Star. I think it was Janet, you said it earlier about your North Star, but the book, the North Star is one of my favorite books. But I like this: the focus and purpose of your North Star. What brings you joy and emphasis on your business skills and application to improve the company above and beyond your technical expertise? So, this is a good one, Janet. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I've always been wired that way. There's nothing about technology for the sake of technology that's ever driven me. It's driven some of my more technical team members, but it's always been about what can we accomplish with it. So that comes relatively naturally to me, as well as I'd imagine from a lot of technology leaders. It's the older you get or the more experienced you get, and the space that you take, you get satisfaction, not just from seeing businesses that you either support thrive, or from whether it's a board standpoint or my clients or however, but as well just seeing, the light go on for people, whether you're giving them professional advice, career advice, or for me, a lot of it is organization and structured advice. And having that light go off for them means the world to me. So that's how I get that satisfaction. Thank you for the question.
And I love the joy that's lighting up in your face when you talk about that. So thank you for your answer and the way you did. Karen, how about you? Where does your joy come from there?
Yeah, I would say having an impact for people and making it easier for them to realize their goals, whether that's in a business context. One of my favorite programs that we rolled out at Gilbane was our AI-based tool for building superintendents, which is the hardest job on the planet in terms of managing 40 trades, foremen, building the process of a building, which is the most complex thing I've ever seen in my career, and rolling out a capability that literally one was almost in tears when he saw it, in terms of what it would do for his ability to do his job, get home on time, work-life balance, et cetera. So I think that is really what brings me satisfaction. And it's why I spend so much time on T200 as well, that to the extent I can use my network and my experience to give people a way to grow their leadership and their impact and realize their goals. That's what I love to do.
Well, so I know that firsthand. If you don't remember, Karen, the idea for this show came up when you and I had dinner with a bunch of other people up in Connecticut not too long ago. And I think this will have to be a series going on, because the impact you had on me about moving to a board role and others I've shared that story with is the prefaces to this call. I'm sure you're helping many people today. So I do thank you for coming up with this idea to do this type of show. Michael, besides Tech Day in Pink, which is something I know brings you joy every year, and you could talk about that more, I'd love to hear it. But how about you? How did you transition to that and finding joy in what you do?
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like my whole career I've been chasing the ability to make impact, whether it was on people, the people in my charge, the people I work with, or, in companies or in industries. And, that's when I look at it. Obviously, Tech Day at Peak is about an impact. It's hopefully, even if we make a difference to one person, then that's everything. It makes all the effort worth it. But even the football club, right? I mean, part of why I picked Carrick Rangers was what happens in the community, and it was a platform. It allowed, as you mentioned it. We launched the first year that I was majority owner there, we launched a women's team, and we've launched a girls academy. In fact, we've been building up through the age groups. Our U16s played their first game, but it's providing a pathway for girls in sport that didn't exist before. But we're also out there working with youth and getting them off the streets on Friday nights and Saturday nights to play football. We're giving back to different parts of the community, setting up a foundation to do micro grant. I mean, there's just that idea of an impact is still at the core, but maybe the focus has changed because, we can make a difference in that part of Northern Ireland and in the youth in that part of Northern Ireland. But also continue to work with and make an impact for young technologists, particularly those from underrepresented communities. in technology through Tech Pact. And so for me, it's all about impact.
I know that to be true. Is that all the time we spend together, it's always about the impact you have on others. So here we got a question from Stacy Moore. Can you please ask what hurdles and considerations each panelist had overcome to capitalize in order to attain your board positions? It's a very good question. So Michael, I know you're sitting on a bunch of boards. You want to start that one? What was the biggest hurdles you had to overcome to accomplish this role? In terms of
Boards, can you state the question again? Sorry, Robert.
So what hurdles and what considerations you take into place to overcome or capitalize that you had to overcome or capitalize on to attain this board position? So whether hurdles or opportunities you capitalize to get a board position.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on any public boards. I am on a number of boards, but not with public companies. I think the probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say, in terms of if you're taking it from being on a board, I think it was Janet and Karen both hit on it earlier, which is resisting that urge to jump in and kind of be part of the operational and the execution place, and really realizing that your role is different. It is oversight, it is governance, it is guidance, but if it's hurdles in terms of getting on a board, I think the biggest thing is your network. And for me, at least, I felt like the biggest thing was making sure that you're leveraging your network, and then you're also just being very choiceful about what you agree to, because you get particularly for non-public boards. Public boards are a different animal, but non-public, you get a lot of requests, and so being very choiceful about what you're going to choose to commit your time to, and really believe in the company or organization that you're representing.
Thank you, Michael. Janet, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael hit on it. I'll get to the public board aspect of it, but for advisory boards, you will get hit up a lot for that. And a lot of that, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it is just about your Rolodex and about making contacts. So if you're comfortable with that, and that's something that you really enjoy doing, that's great. That personally isn't something that drives me, and I've stayed away from those types of engagements. But going to the public board space, so I am the chair of the NomGov committee on the public board that I sit on. So I can tell you that that's a great question. And I'm just going to be really honest about it. It's tough. It really is tough. So I can tell you, it becomes, I don't want to say it's luck. It's not luck, but the part of it that is, it's the combination of the skills that a particular board is looking for and the skills that you have. Mm-hmm. So, when you are looking for a board member, which I can tell you that I've been part of a couple of times, you've got this spec, but it goes different than that. You'll look at a different cast of applicants or candidates, and you will say like, oh, well, this one has this and this one has that. And you will do your comparing and contrasting. So it doesn't mean that you may not have been the best person from that board, but the screening really starts with looking at unique skills, the last role that you had, how long you've had roles, and whether that was public. So patience is a virtue, and you've just got to keep your chin up, because something will end up happening. But I'm telling you, it does have to be it's a unique blending of your skills and background versus what's available and what the company's looking for.
Thank you, Janet. Karen? Excuse me, Karen.
Yeah, no, second both of those points in terms of your network is going to be the source of your opportunities, and patience is absolutely required. I think one thing that CIOs often overlook is, are they in the right day job from a structure perspective, right? Because your value as a board member doing the cyber and technology stuff is a little bit like brushing your teeth. It's just routine committee work. Where I think you get the most satisfaction is where you can be a thought partner with the CEO and the leadership team. And the more that your current role is positioned in that capacity, you report to the CEO or you sit on the leadership team at a minimum. You have the opportunity and access to leadership to influence the strategy. That in these days, it's hard to believe that there are still companies that think that their technology leader there is to, keep networks running and PCs good. But that is, I think, more prevalent than some of us want to admit. Make sure you have permission to serve on a board in your current role. And if you don't have that, then, and you really want to pursue board service, you have to think hard about, are you in the right role that is going to set you up for the long term?
That's a good point. And I just want to throw up one thing, because we've talked about it a lot today, but we haven't gone through how to transition this, and we're running out of time. But everyone's talked about nose in, hands out, and knowing your role on a board. And I think that has to be a whole nother show to unpack how you make that transition. But we are running out of time, and unfortunately, there are two really good questions I wanted to end with today, and give people something to take away. But I guess I'd like to start with this one. So if you're in the middle of a successful CIO or IT leadership career now, how should you be planning for your eventual transition to something post-CIO? So Karen, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say start really building your network, and not just of other technologists, because in your day job, your network is good, nice to have, you learn a lot. It's essential in a portfolio career. It is, Janet and Michael know, it's how opportunities come to you. It's how you learn. And think beyond just your technology leaders. Think about CEOs of vendors that you work with. If you're a CISO that wants to be in board service, having a network of security company CEOs will be very helpful from that. So that's something, again, you can do now, today. Go through your network, understand who your most important contacts are, and refresh those relationships if you haven't.
Building a network always helps, no matter what role, no matter what point your career is in. But I think it's much more critical here if you're looking to not be a CIO any longer. Janet, thoughts?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much drained this one. Having your North Star, Karen's comment about network is spot on. Michael said it earlier, being intentional about some of the things that you're doing. I pursued a doctorate. I always knew I wanted to get a PhD. I thought I was going to do it after I left my service, my corporate service, but I took advantage of COVID and did it a little earlier. But it's knowing what you want to do, being planful about it, networking. If you need to, and you're going to go into business for yourself, or you're going to write a book, making sure that your social media presence is started to really take a shape, and also have the conversation with your company about what your plan is, and make sure you have a successor lined up. Or at least working with your organization about what it would look like without you in the seat.
Thank you, Janet. Michael, anything unique that you want to bring to the table on this one?
I would say, because I agree with all of what was said, is if you do know what your North Star is and you're working toward it, I do think you can look within your own organization to say, are there things, programs, projects, initiatives, other things I can do within the role that I'm at and the company I'm at that will allow me to build toward that, right? The experiences I need, whether it is building, maybe it allows you to build your network. Maybe it gives you experience in a different area of the business and a different level of responsibility. Whereas Karen said, maybe it positions you closer to those kind of non-tech conversations with the CEO and other members of the leadership team.
Well, Michael, thank you. And with only 9 minutes left, I'm going to throw it back to you guys again. Anything you want to add that I know we didn't cover even half of it, but anything you want to add to leave our viewers with before we hopefully get together now to the next show? But Michael, any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, I think I think for every person it's going to be a little different, but the hardest thing for me, and you know, I love the choices I've made and what I'm doing, but the hardest thing is to leave seeing the people day to day and the relationship you build, and you know, those things can continue beyond work, and I think you have to work to build those and to maintain those, and that's important, but it's hard to replace. It's hard to replace that being kind of in the trenches with people every single day, and that's the hardest part for me was walking away.
Sure. It's always the hardest people to leave that every day. But Karen, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think similar to Michael, I think in portfolio life, you do spend a lot more time by yourself, right? Or talking to people through screens and stuff. Just like it's a little bit like when you graduated from college and you're not seeing your friends like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you miss that level of interaction. I think that's an adjustment, but it's finding ways to restore your energy in just in a different context.
Thank you, Karen. Janet?
Yeah, the analogy, the college analogy is a really good one, Karen. I'd have to say that you really do need to be prepared for the, emotional aspect of it. A good friend of mine, Karen Anterell, which I think probably Karen knows, also known as Kat. She was the CIO at Walmart and GlaxoSmithKline. She had, like a year before I left Ralph Lauren, warned me about the potential emotional impact. So I felt a little bit more mentally prepared for it, but it does change. I mean, I miss, like Michael said and Karen said, the camaraderie, not just my own team, but the broader team. I miss being associated with the wonderful company and brand of Ralph Lauren. So there is a feeling of loss, but I have to say, the liberation is also wonderful. You do have more control and more agency over yourself, your branding, what you stand for. And, but the other thing that's very liberating is, being absent from office politics and infighting. There's a friend of mine who, quote, retired at about the same time as me. She said, "Oh my gosh, like the lack of conflict is so disorienting to me that I'm picking fights with my husband."
Yeah.
So it's a big change, but there's a lot of positivity to the change. So I think it's a great transition, and if you plan for it, both mentally, emotionally, financially, I think that you will enjoy it. I would still be willing to go back to a CIO or a CTO or a CDO role, but it's got to be a really super special one. So but in the meantime, man, I'm thoroughly enjoying this chapter.
So thank you all for this. I do want to say, though, that door never closes, especially for tremendous leaders like you. So in case it shows up or someone wants to talk to you further or talk about maybe engaging with you now, Janet, if someone wanted to find you, where do they find you?
Oh, janet@org.works. No .com, just org.works. And on LinkedIn, please, reach out. I love to connect with people and hope to hear from everybody who's in the audience.
I hope so too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just also say, I publish a fair amount of information. We talked about this before we went on. About organization structure, and it's actually really good content. I do encourage you. I don't think it to be self-serving. It is in service to you. Please check it out.
It's excellent content. I read everything you write, Janet. I find it very insightful and a unique voice in a lot of AI signal and noise. Right, your signal. There's a lot of noise. Excellent writing.
I think it's a must read for CIOs, CXOs.
Being a new fan of Janet, I did dive deep over the last few weeks. I read a lot of stuff, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk to our producer upstage, John, and say maybe we should get Janet as a Institute fellow as well. So we'll talk about that later. But Janet, thank you. Karen, if we need to find you, where can we find you?
LinkedIn. I'm the only Higgins Carter, so you can find me easily.
Thank you, Karen. And Michael, when does this season start? How's it going, and how can we find you?
So season is underway for the men. The women just wrapped up to undefeated season, I might add, and got promoted to Division I. But you can find me on LinkedIn. A little harder to find, sort through the Michael Smiths. But you can also Michael.Smith at techdayofpink.org.
Beautiful. Well, listen, I thank everybody for being on the show. I can't express how humbled and honored I am that this group of leaders really decided to do this and sharing wisdom with us and the people watching. So thank you. Thank you everyone that watched. We'll see you next month on Leading the Digital Era, and this will be streamed on YouTube tomorrow. So when you see that, share it with all your friends so we can share more of the knowledge. And I'm going to get them back to do part 2 of the show soon. So thanks everybody for watching, and thanks you guys for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Leading in the Digital Era, presented by the Institute for Digital Transformation and hosted by Robert Field. Look for new episodes coming to a LinkedIn live session at noon on the second Tuesday of every month. Can't join Robert for the live session? You can catch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel.